Are we live? Are we
Yeah.
live? Oh, let me see. I'm gonna check all my social stuff.
Okay.
Let's see if people come on, people. If you're there, give us a sign. Uh, we're closing the book, the end, and it's Saturday. Did I? Oh, there's a little secret that may come out today, Jen.
Uh-oh. There's always secrets that come out. I don't think
That's true. There are always secrets that come out. Let's see who's on. Let's see if anybody's on the LinkedIn. Not yet. Oh, that's too loud. Are you getting feedback from that?
a little. I heard it, but it's not. I don't hear it anymore.
Okay. So on the LinkedIn, let's see. I think people are still sleeping in right now. I'm not seeing any action in the comments.
Let's see what we got here. Let me see if I have any messages. Hmm.
Yep, I don't see anything on the Facebook. And
Who's Adam? Let's see. Oh, Adam.
I don't see anything on the YouTube. Oh, here we go. We got him coming. We got him coming.
I just sent him a text and he's right there.
Oh, I love it. Good morning. I was just like, oh my God, we scheduled a party and nobody's showing up. Here they come.
Yeah.
Here they come.
Yeah. Yes.
So we got LinkedIn user Miss Amy Campbell in Durham, North Carolina. Thank you for joining us, Amy. We're getting a little scared there. Of course, the all-powerful Buddy Brimley. Buddy, man, has it not been awesome to see Buddy? Like he was with us last time, and like the super meaningful things he's been sharing, gracing everybody with his wisdom. We got another LinkedIn user. Oh, Jennifer Hamlin Landis says, hello, Jennifer.
Hey, Hamlin, how are you?
Man, I love it. Steve. Oh, remember Steve Martin? Like,
yes,
the wild and crazy Steve Martin. He's back. What's going on, Steve? And then we got a troublemaker. Frank, what's going on, brother? Glad to have you back, my man. How you been? You know what? I'm gonna go on LinkedIn. It's a StreamYard. I've discovered it's a StreamYard thing that does this weird thing where you can't see. It just says LinkedIn user. Because if I go to the chat, like on LinkedIn, I can totally see who's like the proper name of whomever it is that's. Oh, it is the infamous Kirby Coates and Christine Fuentes. We got Miss Christine Fuentes. Hello, Christine. Nice. Good morning. She's probably having fun with her puppy right now. Davis, can you believe it?
See it?
Mr. Davis Hembrick, how you doing, Davis? Thank you again for always being with us. He's doing some cool stuff, and we're going to be doing a little bit of a collabo session with the Lane Foundations crew.
So they came up in a conversation while I was in Birmingham for really? Like 90% of our company went to Auburn, pretty much out of our corporate office. And they, one of our senior pre-con guys came in and said, "Hey, I got a newsletter from Auburn, and they were talking about these Lane Foundation podcast guys." And I started looking into their stuff, and then I saw you, and I was like, "Well, that's cool."
Beautiful. So we got somebody on Facebook who was. Here's another. We got a bunch of announcements. Ultra Steve Turner. What's going on, Mr. Steve? Y'all out there in the Omniverse. Keep an eye out. If any NASCAR fans out there, there might be some awesome stuff coming up with Steve and, some magical things happening. And Steve is he has invited me to participate with him on some live streams with the local campus in his community, connecting the parents, the students to the principal, counselor, and the teacher. And we're going to facilitate a conversation around that so that the community, the campus can talk about their trade-based program. Which is it's gonna explode. Like, we just know it's gonna be amazing because people are gonna be all over that. And then Mr. Davis Hambrick says, Steve Turner. Steve is in the house. Yep, he sure is. All right. So y'all keep them coming. Let us know where you're at. Again, just love y'all spending this morning with us. Miss Jennifer, how are you?
I'm okay. It's been kind of a roller coaster week for me, but I am coming back up. So I got a lot of good people around me this week. So had a flood in my house about a week ago. So I got a tribe that's helping me tremendously right now.
And you're allowing the tribe to help.
It took a bit, yes,
Yeah.
but they're rallying around me right now.
Did y'all see that big old deep breath she just took? Like, ooh, how hard is it to like receive help? And then before that, like seeking help is like the ultimate, for me, it's always been like the ultimate struggle. So, oh my goodness. Thank you for letting us join you with that. Mr. James Gable, host of the Uncommon Communicator, launched this podcast. I think he's got 3 episodes out there. I'm gonna tell the soundtrack, like the opening soundtrack that they have, it's like the coolest. Cult of Personality, if you remember it back in the day, like it opens, it pulls you in, and then they get straight to it. James, thank you for being here, man. I appreciate the continued support, my friend. So y'all, all the stuff that we posted up on the socials indicated that Mr. Phillip Sellers was going to be here with us, and he is not able to join us this morning. So we are going to punt, and it's kind of what we do, especially everybody here that's in like construction industry, right? We know we had a plan, and things happen. And so we just learn how to adapt and roll with the thing. So before we like start diving into it, I want to say to everybody, like, we are going to rely heavily on you and your experience, because you do have massive experience. And we titled this session as Closing the Book, because originally Jennifer and I just decided we were going to have a conversation about 5S in relationships and lean love, which was a gigantic stretch. Total expectation was for it to like flop and not land at all. But it didn't. And because of y'all, it just grew into this community. Now there's a community of us that regularly come together. All of us have significant impact in the industry. It's branched out into other industries. Other industry professionals are joining in the conversation, in the learning. And that led to a really heavy, real conversation on our last session where we had Spencer, Buddy, Brian Winningham, Adam Hoots, and Thomas LeMay. And they all shared like the real impact, like the stuff that we really don't talk about. And I'll say, like, for me personally, here's the surprise. Here's the announcement. Well, one of the announcements. Today is my birthday. And on my birthday, I know I'm 28. No, I'm not. I'm 45. And here's the funny part. Like, up until maybe 2 months ago, I thought I was 43. And then I don't know why I started doing the math. Like, oh man, I'm 44. I'm going to be 45. Like, I think that's a sign of something, right? So anyhow, I journal, and on my birthday, what I typically do is I'll go through and kind of skim through all the journals I've been writing throughout the year, and I'll review my goals, whatever my goals were that I had set previously, and then I use that for target setting for next year. And about 6 years ago, maybe 7, what I saw was like my professional goals and my community goals, like all of those things, I was performing well on them. But the goals that were about me, like sleep more than 5 hours a night and eat responsibly and get exercise and spend time with family and friends, they were exactly the same thing for 4 years. Like there was absolutely no progress on them. And it was because I allowed my work these expectations that really were self-imposed expectations consume my life and consume everything about me. And so, if y'all were there last time, Spencer shared a really heartfelt story that was like true, man. I was in tears. I think there was a lot of people in tears. And so we kind of peeled the scab off of this wound. And then we went to the after party, and that's where we got to talk with Phillip Sellers, and he shared some stuff, and it became apparent to Jennifer and I that, man, like, we went and opened this wound up, but we haven't really talked about what do we do about it. And so the intent was to tap into Phillip's expertise, but again, he had something going on in his life, and he's got to deal with that. And so, let's hope he's doing well. And so now we're going to have this conversation about, like, what do we do now, right? Like, the wound is open. People have been super transparent, super vulnerable with us in this space. And so we're going to count on y'all to contribute to the conversation. What are you thinking, Ms. Jen?
I know everything it's hitting. I'm remembering all the things we've talked about, and I kind of want to on the recap. So we started this with the 5S in personal relationships, and with a kind of a Jesse plan, which was not really a plan, but and so we started talking down this road, and we were so concerned that we would lose people because we weren't talking about job site stuff. We weren't talking about how it relates to our work, that we at the beginning tried to make those connections, like tried to talk about it outside the gate, but also bring it back inside the gate so that we didn't lose people. And what we found over the course of the 5 S's is that everybody was gravitating to outside the gate. And a lot of the conversations and the comments and the personal stories and the feedback and everything, it was outside the gate. And so we kind of, at that point, started adjusting our conversations, and then it grew. And then the vulnerability grew, and the trust grew, and the stories grew. And we realized that, and Jesse and I have talked about this, and that's another surprise later, but we've talked about it, that no one talks about that. No one talks about when we outside the gate. So when we leave the gate and we go home, or we check into the gate and we come to work, like, and it's a analogy, but we're like, what does that look like inside the gate and outside the gate? And we focus so much, not just lean and not just our processes and our tools, but like outcomes inside the gate. And I think what we found, and also what we feel, obliged to really lean into, is outside the gate. When you leave and you go home, what are you going home to? What are you bringing with you when you go home? What are you walking into? What are you dealing with? How are you sleeping? How are you eating? What does your health look like? What is your, just your family, everything going on around you, your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, all those things. And then what's happening when you're at home that then you bring back when you walk through that gate again. And that space is just not talked about. And I think that's just something that we've realized, that we're talking about it now. And like Jesse said earlier, we're talking about it with people that are in positions in very big companies across the country. And if we can together have these conversations and start looking at ways to make things better and to really focus on the people part of our industry, we can make change.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the scary but really meaningful thing that's happened within me, is there's a sense of responsibility. I have a sense of responsibility because this group, this community really can do it. Right? Like, we really can do it. Maybe y'all know I'm a little off the wall, but we got to keep the conversation going. So that led to say, okay, let's talk about maybe some great practices to use. Miss Amy Campbell says from our last session, she was moved to have some of the crucial conversations, right? And me too. Like just again, the fact that people are coming onto this space where everybody can see your comments. And I'm okay with like sharing my dirt, because my dirt's out there. no big deal. But for for y'all to join in with us, it's magical for me. And Miss Kirby says she understands the lack of movement on personal goals. The easiest person to break promises to is yourself. Oh, and the last person you should be breaking promises to. And so I'm going to call Miss Kirby out because she's amazing. She's gone into this immense, she's gone down the path. She's on the journey of self-discovery and vulnerability. And so we applaud you, Miss Kirby, for being here. You know, we can't help but do that. But so question to the audience, can you share some of the methods that you use to maintain your promises to yourself? Because like Adam Hoots is on the call. What's up, big dog? He's shared many times the book of Leadership and Self-Deception. Right? We've referenced that book several times. If you haven't read it, go get it. In the book, there's a concept. I was introduced to the concept of self-betrayal and the emotional baggage that creates. And when I think back on the times that I was wrestling with substance abuse and neglecting every other thing in my life, it was a product of resentment that I built in because of self-betrayal. I was betraying myself by not acting on the things that were the most important to me because I had this other box of crap to check off that really didn't contribute to the degree that I was designed to contribute. And since I've gone down that path, I get to meet super awesome, cool people like Mr. Will Sullivan in New York City. Made it today. Good morning. It's nice and early up in the NYC. What's going on, Will? We've got a lot going on, so thank you. Mr. Steve Turner shares. He can personally say that it's a lot of work to train the brain to make you push yourself to reach your goals, but it can be done. You can train your brain over time, just like brushing your teeth daily. And so this is Ultra Steve Turner. He is Ultra Steve Turner because he runs ultra marathons. He's got one coming up here, I think in May, 200 plus miles. The last one he just ran out in the desert, he ran with no team. He went at it alone, came through victorious, conquered the mental barriers that you're faced with when you're out there. And I mean, that's just it, right? Like we talked about a lot of this stuff last time of the pain, and Spencer shared a story of coming home to his daughter, and his child didn't recognize him. Right. And that, I mean, that sucks. And the toll, like the impact, the draw that could have on somebody's psyche is, I can't even fathom it, but it lends itself to hopelessness. What do you think, Miss Jennifer?
No, so I'm listening to you, and I know, Jesse, the thing that I think helps us jive a little bit is you do really good at turning it inward and going, hey, here's the things that I've dealt with, and here's the things that, whether it was abuse or it was, bad decisions, things like that. And all of us can relate to that, but I want to make sure we don't miss the fact that we also have dug into that. Some of us, that may not be your first option, is to go and make a choice that maybe hurts ourselves, but we are also dealing with people around us. And I think the balance of it's that internal, decision, and how do we reach our personal goals, but also a lot of our goals really have to do with our families and have to do with those people that are close to us. And I think that's what we've identified in this. It's not just, mental health was a huge conversation last time, and how that is in our industry and what that looks like. But mental health is not just, I've got to make sure I take care of my mental health and make sure that I know how to show up every day and make sure that when I leave, I don't take it home with me, but it's the people around us. And whether it's the people at work, and how do we identify that, and how do we see it, and what does that look like? But also when we go home, the people that we love and we care about, and, how are we showing up for them? And I think that's part of the conversation that led us to this live stream is, when Phillip showed up to the Clubhouse conversation. And again, it was the first one he'd shown up to, because I think you had it on Facebook, and he showed up, and his background was, military, and, really just that intervention and being able to help identify some things. And he started talking on Clubhouse. And for me, it resonated, not because I can see how it applies to me personally, to help me with my mental health, but, with my 10-year-old daughter, and she deals with anxiety. She deals with a lot of different things that, as someone who is very, high performing and driven and, goal oriented, it's like you just want to fix it and make it better. You just want to go, that's irrelevant. Yeah, you got this. It's okay. It's not going to hurt you. You're going to that's what we do, because we just push through. That's our, that's in our DNA. That's how we work. That's how we are where we are. And Phillip brought up two things in that conversation that hit me hard, because I have a 10-year-old that you love and you care about, and you want to help them. You want to help them grow. You want to give them tools. And he said, and he was, again, looking at this from a bigger picture on mental health. And when you're dealing with people that maybe are dealing with some things that you maybe need to navigate around, he said two things that really hit me. He said, number one, said, you have to be gentle. And I don't know about you, but I and the people that I am around with a lot, gentle is probably not one of the top 10 things that someone would describe me as. But you have to be gentle when you're interacting with these people. And so, because they need that care and that compassion. And a lot of times, and again, I grew up as an athlete, so it's like, oh, shake it off. Oh, your ankle's fine. Walk it off. You're fine. Like that. That's the mentality that I know. And so when you're dealing with something, and it's, and you automatically go, it's not that bad. It's okay. You're going to be okay. And the second thing he said is, you have to allow them to have control. And, okay, that sounds okay. No. But to the point of acknowledging what they're saying, making it real, and letting them be, what do you think? And how would you do this? And how would you react to this? And after listening to him say those things, I caught myself every day either dismissing or telling it's not that big a deal, or stop making it a big deal, or also having to stop and not let my voice escalate, and let my tone escalate. And just, I had to intentionally do that. And I'm talking about with a 10-year-old. And we interact with people all day, every day, and we have no idea what is going on in their head. I kind of know what's going on in her head. And so those are just two things that he brought in that hopefully those can resonate with some people. And again, it's not just ourselves and how we deal with it, but how do we deal with those people around us?
100%. So what I heard you say, and Adam reiterated, is be gentle. Emphasis on the gen part. Again, he dropped that knowledge on us, and it had a big impact on you, and you went out and practiced it. And I think, for everybody that's out there in the Omniverse, what are you practicing, right? We've got some tips in the chat. I'm going to bring them up here in a second. But I want to share my side of it. I've had suicidal thoughts, right? It's been a long time. And when the idea, 2 times I can remember, it went through my head. And for me, it was a matter of what the hell are you thinking, Jess? Get your head straight. And I was able to overcome it. Now, I say that also knowing that when I was in my addiction, abusing and avoiding reality, escaping it through substances, I had a guy tell me that was a form of, I was attempting suicide, just taking the longest, most painful, drawn out way about it, right? I was drowning myself. It was self-destructive. And so it shifted my thinking a little bit. And, I've dealt with the same issues with family members, people that I love dearly, that there were attempts made. And in my head, the only thing I could think was, get over it, focus on the positive, do the next right thing. And so when Phillip made that comment of no, be gentle, right? Be gentle. I totally screwed it up. And give them the power, right? Give them some sense of power. And it was simple things. He recommended say, hey, can I take you some food? What would you like me to bring you? Like just that, the power of them saying, okay, bring me some chicken fried steak from Bud Jones. Because if you're from San Antonio, you know all about the chicken fried steak from Bud Jones. Gives that individual, gives them some sense of power back. And then he also talked about that technique, not just applying in this attempted suicide situation, but also in assault. When people are assaulted, and we deal with that in the workplace. So I'm going to take this back to not minimizing things. People experience assault in different ways. And for some of us, we may see that as that's not what they meant. That's not what was happening. So we will minimize their experience. And if that's not on being on the receiving end, because, I've had some experience there too, being on the receiving end of some kind of assault, and then going to the people that are supposed to protect you and champion you and are the representation of what is right. I was a little kid, went to the adults because adults do the right thing all the time. That was my thinking. And then to see the adults tell me that's not what happened. Like
minimizing,
like it sucked the life out of me. It transformed. Well, I'm a little off, right? A little rebellious and maybe a little bit of a nonconformist. It was that made me say the rules are broken. I am not playing by these rules anymore because they're not serving me. And I don't think they're serving anybody else. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I just decided that it wasn't. But that was a result of the people that I went to get help from did not help me. They minimized my experience. And so when he said that, there was a conviction, one, that, okay, I suck because I'm not gentle when I'm faced with these types of situations. And then immediately it was deeper because when we went into the assault part of it, I'm like, man, and I've been on the receiving end. Like what I hated the most, what caused the most damage to me, I went and did again. And so that was like, okay, now we got to talk. We need to bring this up to our team out here, to this community. One, for awareness, like, y'all, we're going to deal with this stuff, right? I mean, there's people that are suffering, but they're showing up with a smile, and it may be you. And so I'm going to put you on the spot, Jen. You had a very significant situation, like your house got flooded, which, but it was a big deal. And so here's the question, Jen. Was your first response to go and ask for help?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Why not?
Because I think my default is I can fix it. I can figure it out. I can do it. I mean, it's again, I grew up single father, 4 kids, oldest of the 4 kids. So I think I just, my gut is, got to figure out what to do. And again, I work in an industry that, I see these things. So it's not like it was foreign to me, but I think it being at home and, significant damage to where I'm going to have to be relocated for 3 or 4 months, and just things started piling up on decisions and, what that looks like, and then what we're going to have to do. And, just top it off with it's December. I have 2 kids and now we have to figure out where we're going to be for Christmas. And I just think it just compounded over, and to the point of, and I know you were on the other end of that phone call, but I called and I don't get overwhelmed very much because I've got things figured out, I think, in my mind most of the time. And it just it completely just dropped me to the floor. Like I didn't know what to do. And for me, I think that just made me feel very weak.
Mm. And is it okay to be weak, Jennifer?
It is. I'm learning that. That's a process, and I'm learning that it's okay because you have people around you that can help and can lift you up. And I'm usually that person that's lifting, not the one that is needing the lifting. And so it was a big shift for me.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful that you welcomed me in and let me be a part of that. And, Mr. Ian Smith in D-Town, what's going on, Ian? Tells us, and I think this adds to it, right? Like everyone on the call's got significant responsibility and influence within their organizations, and people rely on us. So Ian says, people rely on me, relentless, never stop improving. He thinks his father installed this in him at an early age. And so we have these things that reinforce that we've got to be strong. We got to know, we got to be the person. And somehow we end up deciding that we can't ask for help. And we all absolutely need help. And so even as a kid, let me find out the guilty party here. It says, my first phrase as a kid was, damn computer. First phrase as a kid was, I do it by myself. The resilience mentality can start young and be hard to break. Like 100%. Guilty. there's no doubt that is, I've said that's where my thinking turned. But back to what you just mentioned, Jen, you reached out, right? And so Adam, we're going to go through some remedies or some methods that we can use to combat this, because we have to keep our cups full. We're out there giving, leading, supporting, learning, making decisions. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but if you want to invite me to dinner, just tell me where the hell to be and what the hell we're going to eat, because I really don't want to have to make another decision. It is a draw. Like if you just want to woo me and get me to do anything you want, tell me where to be, tell me what to wear, tell me what time, and I'm there. You ask me and it's kind of like, geez, okay, well, let me make that decision. But another thing, Adam tells us, keep folks close who care about you and challenge you directly. That's the only way to keep himself from deceiving himself. And 100%, right? I took me a while to understand the value of having other people know what I'm struggling with and know, like, or maybe it was me that didn't know, right? Like all this stuff, Miss Kim White tells me, all this stuff that I have on my body, that's skin. And because I have skin, that makes me human. And because I'm human, I'm going to need help. Like she had to say it that way for me to really understand that I'm going to need help. We're all going to need help. And building that muscle of asking for help is important. And so I have what I refer to as my advisory council. And these are people that know what I'm struggling with and know the indicators that say I'm spiraling out of control, and they have the responsibility and the permission to call me on it. And if y'all didn't know, Jennifer is one of those people. And there's several other people out there that I maintain contact with because it reminds me to stay human.
Jesse, real quick, I want to hit, which there was a couple of things that happened. And we kind of started going down that road on red flags, or when we're around people and we sometimes know what they're going through or we don't know what they're going through. And I want to be real intentional. So again, Jesse's around me and he knows a lot of what's going on. He knew the situation. But I was really good at like, I got this. Like it took me calling and like reaching out to be able to like let down that wall and let people in. And I think there's a balance there. If I was at a point where I made the call, but there's a lot of times where that call's not made, and we've got to be aware and cognizant of what's going on, and the cues and the little red flags and the things that maybe are going on with people around us that are normally in our space and normally people that we interact with, and something's off or something's different. And how do we approach that? How do we interact with that to where it's not, we've got the answers, we can fix this? It wasn't Jesse going, I'm gonna send all these people to you, Jennifer, you're good. Like I didn't, until I asked for help, like I didn't get all of that influx of things, and so it's, how do we look at those cues and those things and go, ooh, maybe there's a conversation here. And Jesse, I think another thing Phillip said is you've got to ask permission. And you did that. And I so appreciate that. You're like, Jennifer, can I help you? And so even, for me, it was, a flood in my house, but for those abuse or people that we may think are struggling with some things, and they're, we have to ask for permission. And that goes back to giving them control, whether it's, hey, can I sit with you? Hey, can I come by? Hey, can I do this for you? Because again, that little, just changing the question and the way that we interact with them, sometimes they feel they have lost everything and they have no control, and it's not worth even staying because they don't have anything. And sometimes he said those little questions give them some control back, and that could be the difference in maybe a decision they make.
100%. And so Miss Amy Campbell gives us an example of what not to say. You misunderstood what happened or what was meant. And here's a goofy example. I've fallen in love like it's the truest love so many times in my life. And it started all the way in first grade. Pamela Gonzalez, I'll never forget her name. She had long brown hair. I hid in the coat rack, like the closet where we hung all our coats, and I hid behind her jacket one day. And when she grabbed her jacket, I snuck a kiss in, right? I gave her a big old kiss on her cheek. And then she moved, like her family moved. And I was
because of you.
No, not because of, I hope not because of me. But I remember, I still remember it. Like it hurt so bad because I wasn't going to see her anymore. And what I was told, because I was like, but I love her. I'm losing her. And what I was told was, it's not love. You're a kid. You don't know what love is. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget how that felt. And so this statement of you misunderstood what happened, it's the same, man, that's like you're pulling somebody's heart out at their most vulnerable time to minimize what the hell they're going through. So we just, please, y'all don't do that.
And one more example again is, and I'm using kids because that's what I know is it. We've got to stop discounting what somebody feels, because it doesn't matter if that was our intention. It doesn't matter if that's what we meant. It doesn't matter if it makes no sense to us. It doesn't matter. And it's so hard for us sometimes to not project where we go, what we think, what we would do, what our reaction is, and not understand why someone else wouldn't duplicate that. But like, there's no two people that have the same experience and the same background and the same circle around them. So we have got to stop discounting it and making it be, well, I didn't mean that. It didn't matter what you mean. If that's how they took it, there's a disconnect. There's something wrong if that's how you took it, or that's how they took it. And I mean, I have two girls, 10 and 13. And when one of them said, that's not what I meant, it doesn't matter if the other one felt that. And so we've got to be able to lean in and acknowledge that whether it was meant or not, intentional or not, purposeful or not, that's what was received. And if you can think of it from that perspective and then elevate that to interactions with with our adult, friends and our people on our job sites, it doesn't matter what we meant if that's how they took it.
100%. But our feelings are real, like, period. And if we minimize it, we suffocate the space for connection. We suffocate the space to connect. And, talking to Phillip, he also mentioned in his time in the military that there were people that were on the verge of ending their lives. And he had no idea, like totally missed it, totally missed all the signs. And I know we got people on the call that have been in situations like that, it's such a shock to everybody. And I think a big contributor to that is exactly that, people minimizing things. And so every time I minimize something, what I'm signaling to the people around me is, this is not a safe place. Your feelings don't matter. Your feelings don't count. And so I'll adapt and stuff it until there's no more room to stuff it. And then if I'm not equipped with the practice of seeking help and saying I'm human, like, right? But he tells us to feel weak every now and then is to be human. And I don't get that help. And then I'm alone. And there's no reason to keep living that way. I mean, I imagine that is that's what happens. So Will Sullivan shed some light, right? Because we were getting into how stinky it can be. But practice that Mr. Will Sullivan up in New York City says his approach is always this: to center his entire life on 4 core values, the things that make him tick. And by the way, y'all need to know he's off on a brand new journey that's lighting the world up, and it's based on his 4 core principles here. Mine and connecting. His 4 values are connecting, humor, learning, and sharing.
I like those.
Is that not like? Of course, you want to hang out with Will. So
Yes.
Y'all on LinkedIn land, go follow Will Sullivan. He's the ultimate, man. If what I'm involved with doesn't have all 4, then I am not me. Then need a reality check. Everyone has their own drivers. Ask yourself what makes you you. Ooh, that's a great question, Jennifer. And I'm glad you prepped for this question. What makes you you, Jennifer?
We just talked about this earlier. For me, I think it's creating connections, and I know it. I usually stop at that because it's like, oh, I just connect people, but I think it's connecting people and helping them find their purpose and what what makes them joyful, what makes them feel powerful, that makes them feel empowered to do things and to make, whether it's change or growth or learning. But I think when I am talking to people, one, just me sharing and, being a little vulnerable and creating that trust, but also being able to identify and ask questions. I'm learning that from you, asking those questions that help them kind of let me know, okay, here's maybe what they want or where their gaps are or some things that they're hoping for. And when I can hear those things, then I can turn around and whether it's connecting them to someone that can help with that, or also, and this happens a lot, is sometimes people don't know. They don't know what they want. And I think we're learning that if we can ask the right questions, and Jesse's the questionator, and ask the right questions where they're not leading and they're not the yes, no questions, and you can ask those inquiring questions, you can help people start to see those things. And I think for me, even with my little kids and my people that I interact with, that's what I strive to bring to every conversation, acknowledging people for who they are and shining a light on them, because everyone has a purpose and everyone has value. And then also through that communication with them, really helping them kind of identify, like, where do they want to go? What do they want to do? And what is that thing that will then bring joy to them?
And so when you find yourself in a situation where that is not welcome or possible, what kind of impact does that have on you?
At first it would bother me a lot more, but I've realized that everyone's in a different place in their life. And sometimes I'm going to say my light or what I bring is a lot, and it can, blind people and it can shine in their face a little too much. But I also know that it doesn't stop me from shining, because that just may not be where they are at that moment. And they just may need a little light. They may need a glimmer. They may need a spark. They may need some things that will then get them to where they're a little more receptive or a little more, willing to share or open up. And it's not my place to just force it. It's not my place to just dive in and get them in a place that they're not comfortable with. But that doesn't have to stop me from what I'm doing. I just have to be a little more gentle, but being able to understand that if I just keep shining my light and keep doing the things that I'm doing, it will attract people. It will bring people into a space that maybe they weren't quite comfortable with before.
100%. Steve Martin says, sounds gentle to him. And then Miss Angel Lavecchio with the Curious Idealist says she likes to call that intentional curiosity, right? Ask the right questions, seek to understand where that person is coming from, what they're telling themselves. I had a conversation with one of my many coaches, member of the advisory council, David Verbal, and talking about one of the blocks that I'm dealing with. And we traced it back to, of course, early childhood trauma. And so I have a story in my head about why the different people in my life did the things they did. And of course, they did it against me, right? Like that's the story I tell. They did it because I'm less than, I'm undeserving, all of this garbage. And he said, well, Jess, you can go back and rewrite the story. And when you rewrite the story, take into account that they are human beings and they're doing the best they can with the tools and resources that they got. And I was like, son of a gun, like yikes. Like now I got hours and hours of journaling to do to really go back and rewrite the story of, and taking into account that they were human. They're human also, right? Like Dominic says, your imperfections start in your blind spots. You need friends to help you see them, and perfection does not exist. And so these people that, I hold some resentment for, maybe they didn't have those friends. They didn't have, like my mom, I know for sure she was working herself to the bone. She was working 2 jobs. She was going to night school, and she had 2 sons. One was really great, and the other one was me that was making life more complicated than it needed to be. She didn't have time for friends. She didn't have time to make those connections and have 4 a.m. calls with people that she trusted for them to point out some of her gaps. And she was doing all that she could with what she had. So that is on the agenda. It's on my Trello board to go back and rewrite the damn story, because it doesn't have to be what I've been telling myself. It's really probably not anywhere near true. And so back to what you were saying just a minute ago, Jen, Steve Martin, again, bringing it, says he just heard a message yesterday. Don't teach, rather think, how can I bring out the best in others? The mindset is not you need to change, but you can improve. And then let me know it's okay to fail. Like, I want to ask the audience, how many folks out there give themselves permission? Oh man, you just gave me an indicator. Give themselves permission to fail. Jennifer, you go first.
Well, I mean, you said it earlier, and I think it hit me this week more than anything. And for failing for me is that feeling of weakness, is that whether I should be okay, I should be able to handle this, I should be stronger. That for me is when I had to kind of self-reflect this week and have a moment of, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and this is not normal, and I don't know what to do. And what do I do? What do I do with that? And that was in my mind, weakness was, failing, because I'm the one that makes the decisions. I'm the one that takes care of everything. And for me to need something, that was in my mind a fail, because I should be able to handle it. And I mean, all of us, I don't know if there's a person on here that doesn't go, I got this, I can figure this out. And when you have something like that hits you that wasn't expected, and you could probably figure it out, but you could figure it out a whole lot better and a whole lot easier, and probably going to come out at the other end a whole lot in a much better place if you allow people to help you. I just haven't had to deal with that a lot. And this week it just hit me straight in the face.
And you handled it like a champ.
I'm still handling it.
You're still handling it. Like you let us help you, and I knew it was hard for you, so it was a really special moment. I'm going to treasure when you reached out, but we got to get there. Like that's the point of it. So I'm wondering, Jen, if you would have called me when you did, and I would have said, well, it's really not that big a deal. It's just water on the floor. how do you think things would have gone after that?
I think it would have been a completely different conversation. And again, it not that it would have changed my thought and my view of you at all. I think it would have come back to how I received it and what my response was. Like I probably would have gone, Jesse, you're probably right. I'm probably overreacting. That's what I would have done. And then I would have gotten off and I would have tried to figure it out. But I think the feeling of being overwhelmed and the feeling of, discounting my fear and where I was feeling, those would have been, I would have discounted them and I would have made them, I shouldn't be feeling that way. And again, probably I would have come out the other side, but there were some things there that next time, if something happened like that, or maybe something not as severe, I probably would have been less likely to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we do to people when we minimize their stuff. And like Mr. Nakash says, right, it's a matter of how we receive it. Like the person, every time I'm in crisis, I'm going to tell you, it is the sky is falling down. It is the heaviest freaking thing in my world right now. That's why I'm bringing it to you. Sometimes I just need you to listen to me whine and work me through it. And when we had this exercise yesterday, Jen, we were, kind of practicing the questions and stuff. And Sean Moran, like, I have this thing that I'm wrestling with, which isn't, it's a good thing. It's a good problem. But I'm still not clear on what's going on. But because he wasn't giving me solutions, he was listening and he was asking questions about, well, what's really going on, and what about this, and what's it going to look like in the future, and like, man, I hadn't thought about those things. And so he didn't minimize my crazy, because I opened the conversation with my problem right now is I'm a social media mogul and it's a little tough. And he didn't say, yeah, Jess, chill out. Are you drinking again? He didn't say that. He said, okay. It's like, so what's going on with that? Like, what part of that is difficult? Like, well, and then we got deeper and deeper and deeper. And so he helped me. He soothed, like, the conversation, the fact that he didn't minimize, he received my message as a real meaningful message and continued to seek to understand. It helped me. And to, like you said just a little while ago, 100%. When I'm stuck again, guess what? I am going, like, I'll call Sean and there's a bunch of other people, but it's a muscle that takes reps. It takes practice to build that muscle of seeking help. And everybody knows about first times. If the first time was horrible, you're likely not going to do it again. So that's a call out to everybody on this call, is when people ask you for help. There's a cool video. I wish I had the link of I think it's a married couple, and the lady's got like a nail in her head, and she's talking to her partner about, her head really hurts. And he's like, would pull the nail out, pull the nail out, pull the nail out, pull. And she's like, no, that's not what's happening. Like, that's not the thing. She just needed somebody to listen to her. Yes, she needed to pull the nail out. But in the moment, what she needed was somebody to validate her and recognize that she was in some sort of pain, and she needed that comfort. And of course, the dude was to pull the nail out, and that's a block. Like, that doesn't help the situation. So just because it's obvious to you doesn't mean it's going to be helpful to the person. So we got to pause, pump the brakes, ask questions. Like Mr. Davis Hambrick always says, lead with questions. And he also shares, I struggle with that concept for years. I had someone in my life tell me it's okay to fail. It is all about how you learn from it and how you respond. And Adam says he fails every day, right? Like, how do you learn? The two greatest teachers I've had in my life are pain and failure. And the truth be told, I've repeated several of the same failures over and over. So sometimes, I'm a fast learner, but I'm an even faster forgetter on some things. So I got to repeat that thing. But when we create a space, it's like the language of psychological safety is pretty popular right now. And it repels people, right? Like, what does that mean? And it gets really confused and diluted. that means everybody gets a trophy. No, that doesn't mean everybody gets a trophy. For me,
or it's squishy, and everyone thinks squishy, and it doesn't have to be. That's not what it means.
Absolutely right. It is not what it means. It's give people space to experiment. And in experimentation, guess what? There's failure. But through the experiment, you're learning and you adjust and you run another cycle that sounds familiar to some other things that people have posted on the wall, but really don't practice, this PDCA thing. Giving people, like displaying the behavior that it is okay to fail. And as leaders, what does that look like? That looks like you letting people say what's not good, bringing up the stinky problems, and not losing your mind and giving solutions in the moment, because that signals to people that problems are bad and failure is unacceptable. And then you end up taking all the creativity, all the heart, all the genius out of the people. And you end up asking yourself, like, man, why can't people make decisions? Why can't people take initiative? Well, because you suck the life out of them, bro. That's why. What do you think, Jen?
No, I think two things, just listening to you talk. I think when we interact with people, and I go back to that, when people talk about psychological safety or vulnerability, they go to, that's that squishy, that, that sunshine and rainbows and unicorn stuff. Like, that's the stuff we don't really live in that space. So two things I want to emphasize on. It doesn't matter who we're interacting with. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're on the job site, we're inside the gate, we're outside the gate. It doesn't matter. Every single person, doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter how you know them. They're part of a family. They have to live somewhere. They have to figure out, they have to eat. They have to, they have to take care of themselves. They have to go, they should be going to the doctor. They should be getting checkups. Like, all of those things are with everybody. But yet the responses to those things, what do those look like for every single person, are different. And I think we sometimes forget that what we're bringing in and what our experience is part of the conversation. But there's a whole nother side, and it's so hard sometimes, not even to get out of our head, but just to shut the hell up and listen. I mean, and I mean, really, like, we've got to stop thinking because we've been there, we've done it, or we think we understand the situation or even the issue. Mm-hmm. Then we've got to bring out what we have into it. And I say this all the time. And I when you are asking questions and then you're shutting up and you're listening, that's the only time you're learning and growing. And I say it and I mean it. Like, right now I'm talking because I'm speaking from my experience. I'm speaking from whether it's expertise or knowledge or my background, that's all I can speak to. But if I say something, I ask something, I'm interacting with you, and I just say, ask the question and stop talking. Now your knowledge, your expertise, your experience, your background, all of that's coming into this conversation too. And we just forget sometimes that there's only one side when we're the one trying to talk and bring the answer. And we've got to stop.
Yeah. And to your point, when my mouth is moving, I ain't learning. I'm barfing whatever it is I think I know. Miss Angel, the curious idealist, says, this is back to the failure question. Mm-hmm. She says it depends on the context, but truthfully, she doesn't give herself permission to fail often. Right? Like, Angel, mm-hmm. Thank you for being vulnerable and owning that. And she also says, that being said, she might be more relaxed in how she defines success than others might. And then she says, well, wait a minute, it might be journaling time. Is that beautiful or what? Like,
yes.
It's like, well, maybe you start questioning, like, examine it, dive into it, get courageous and go there, and then get help, right? Like, reach out to your network or get professional help. Like, in comparison to how I functioned, let's say 8 years ago, I have an army of help. Like, I've got coaches, I've got a therapist, I've got my advisory council, I've got Jen, I got so many resources. And that's the only reason that I'm on this path of being a social media mogul. But I mean, seriously, 5 or 8 years ago, I was this solitary, frustrated, lost person, offering very little value to my community, sharing almost none of the gifts and talents that I've been blessed with. And the one significant thing, there's a bunch of them, but one is my reliance or connection to people and trusting people and inviting people in. And I got a long way to go before I figured out how to really, really get great at that to deeper levels. But it's made all the difference in my life and the way I show up and in the way that I contribute.
Can we lean in a little bit? I know Angel said this. I want to, and I know you do this. So I want to, how do we refill our cups? And I know that we haven't dug into it a lot, but I think it's important because I know, maybe journaling time. I know, Jesse, you've found that journaling is a way that you can kind of refill. I think we found that for me, it's drawing and, and like just taking that time away from the world and just kind of, putting a pen to paper and, drawing and stuff like that. So again, I think it's important, and not for us, but also as we're interacting with people, because, you helped me kind of identify that needs to happen. So it's not just me figuring it out myself, but again, goes with those people around us and how they can help us, but also how we can help them.
100%. So that whole thing, again, Kim White, amazing. She introduced me, or she's amazing. Like, she could slap me in the face and it feels like a hug, right? And what she pointed out, this was what was happening. We're doing this live streaming and we're being very vulnerable, right? I'm sharing my dirt and I'm more connected with other people, even though some people I haven't met on person, but I feel connected to the folks that are in the chat and that are participating in the live stream and all this stuff. But that has, like, going there, being vulnerable and putting my face up here and all the insecurities that come with that, and then sharing my stuff and the fear that comes with that, does have a draw on my energy. And because I'd never done it before, I didn't know. And so what happens is I end up becoming melty. This is a technical term that Kim introduced me to. And so I think everybody in here can probably relate. And so what that means is, let's say you've ever planned for like a big giant presentation at a conference or a big presentation at work, or, big event that you're the person. It's all like you're carrying that load, and then you deliver. And after you deliver, you are spent and done and dead to the world. Does that sound familiar, Jen?
Very much.
That is melty.
Okay.
And in our melty times, we are vulnerable to making really bad, self-destructive decisions and continuing down that spiral that we can't get out of. And so Kim recognized that and pointed that out to me. She said, Jesse, you need to have something. You need to refill your cup more than you've ever done before. It's like before all of this, it was running. I'd go run and, I'd get my brain straight or straighter. And I was ready to come back and contribute. And I wasn't in that melty space where I was vulnerable to making bad decisions. And my decisions are pretty bad, right? Like there could be some pretty good movies made of the dumb stuff that I've done. But so I started journaling more purposefully, regular habit of an hour of journaling, because for me, that is the time. There's no devices on. It's just me. I've got my coffee and I'm examining my thoughts. Sometimes it's 6 pages of stuff. Sometimes it's 1 page of stuff. Sometimes it's just little scrabble things that are kind of jumbled up in my head. But I then become centered with myself, and I have the juice, whatever it's going to take to continue showing up and not be in that melty state of making poor decisions, right? Or diving into self-betrayal, because it's really, really impactful to me to spend this time with you and everybody that's on the call. But I know that there was a point, I think it was like after the second one that we did, that I'm like, man, like this is not, or how much deeper can we go? And clearly I think it's endless because we keep going deeper, but there was some dark stuff coming into my head. So refilling the cup, right? So that's the question.
Yes.
Jen does amazing. So keep an eye out for the NFTs that Jen is going to be launching here in the near future. I'm a journaler, so I'm wondering what y'all do out there in the Omniverse. What do you do to refill your cup? How do you get centered with yourself? Just you. And if you don't have an answer, you got homework to do. Again, back to the community thing. Thomas LeMay and Angel are having a conversation. Adam's dropping links. Angel's dropping links. Like, thank you for that. Like, let's serve one another. Let's support each other. Thomas, I had the privilege of having dinner with Thomas in Miami. Amazing Cuban place. It was like super delicious, and we had some like coffee that I think I'm still like on my caffeine high from that coffee, little baby cup, and that was delicious. And so from the conversation, from an earlier session, he says, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then to treat everything as if it were a nail. Like if that's all I have, that's what I'm going to treat. We use that thing all over the place, that saying all over the place, but it absolutely comes into play when we're helping people, or we think we're helping people. If the only tool I have is to give answers, solutionizer, then that's all I'm ever going to do, and I'm not serving appropriately. So we got to build our skill set.
Hey, go back up. No, go back up real quick, because I feel like you missed Dominic's, and it hits right on what Thomas said. Can you go up to his? It says it's not a sign of failure.
Oh, here we go. Come on.
It says it's not a sign of failure. It's a sign you need to build levers of controls for those types of problems. Your toolbox gets developed by solving the problems you face. And so that toolbox, that goes right back to what Thomas said.
Yes. So if all you have is a hammer, you need to do some shopping. Right? You need to go and get some more tools, add that to your toolbox so that you can respond appropriately to what is going on out there and serve people more gooder. I got to give a shout out to Mr. George Hunt. What's up, George? He says, failure and I have a love-hate relationship. I hate it when I fail, but it's one of the best ways to learn, and I love learning more. Here's another, maybe, I don't know if it's a secret, but it's something that I've learned to embrace. All my failures, I'm probably the only one that even knows about them. Right? Like, even in the middle of the failure, today's a good example, right? The agenda that we had, this is not we're riffing, totally riffing right now. And so the anxiety that I have, my failure to follow up and make sure, and all the things to make sure we went as planned. I'm pretty sure there's people out there thinking like this was the entire plan. Like, this was absolutely not the plan. So there's an immense failure going on, and I'm kicking myself in the face right now because I allowed it to happen.
But what we found because of that is way more than what we could have expected anyway.
Exactly. So give yourself permission to fail. Give yourself permission to freestyle. And that's how we're going to learn. So Steve Martin says, one of the greatest gifts of being a grandfather, you get another chance. Oh my God. You get another chance to improve all the things you screwed up as a father. Listen so much more now. Steve, that's big time, bro. Thank you. And you don't have to wait to be a grandparent. You can hit the reset button like right now and start over. I don't know if you were a gamer, but I was kind of a gamer back in the day. And when things like my score, I was trying to get the high score, and things weren't working out, and I knew I wasn't going to set a new record. Reset, start over, right? We can do that every single day. And if I didn't listen to somebody, and it's something that I do in my reflections at the end of the day, is like, where could I have better served? And often I'll find out like, ooh, there was an opportunity. And then I have a decision. Do I touch it, or do I just do it going forward? And most of the time I'll go back and say, hey, yesterday in this situation, somebody made an inappropriate comment and I laughed at it. And that was wrong. I was inappropriate. I contributed to that. And how can I make it better for you? almost every time people are like, what the hell are you talking about? But sometimes they're like, thank you for that. And sometimes they have a request and sometimes they don't. But the whole point of that is you get to reset. If you make a misstep, learn from it. You like that little plug for learnings and missteps, and go back and make amends. Like, free yourself of that burden. You don't have to carry it forever.
And I want to add that, and I run into this a lot, and I've learned that to be able to say I am sorry is not a sign of weakness. And again, when you are going and you realize that you made a mistake, whether it was a wrong email, or you said something that maybe, somebody took the wrong way, or you made an assumption, it's okay. And I try to intentionally, I have to make sure I mean it. I don't want to say it just to, blase, but it's okay to say, man, I'm sorry. I completely mistook what you said, or I assumed this. And I want to make sure I fix it and correct it. And however they take it, you can't control. You cannot control how someone takes it. But again, just you being the one to start that conversation, or at least give that to someone else, it gives them permission to then be able to respond to you.
Yes, we're always giving permission or taking it away, and we got to own our impact in that situation. Yes. So we got 5 minutes left. We're gonna. There's two things that I need to bring on the screen, and we're gonna give a pretty exciting announcement. Exciting for us anyway. So Steve Martin shares, when he's struggling with the thought, "Is my cup half empty or half full?" It helps him to reflect and zone in on what's important. So he's talking about making his cup smaller. Like, if that's not a liberating concept, right? You don't have to go get the 40-ounce cherry limeade from Sonic. You can go and get that little bitty cup of coffee that we had in Miami the other day. When you do that, your cup suddenly becomes full. So think about the size of cup that you got out there. And then again, Angel sharing vulnerability, right? She says someone told her once that to write what you don't want to read.
No.
So
not to write what you don't want to read.
Thank you. Not to write what you don't want to read. So sometimes she struggles with journaling because she has that voice saying, no one needs to read that. Don't write it down. And that's in an isolated, just you and your journal. And we still have these things that tell us like, oh no, don't do that. Free yourself. This was a technique I was taught. Write that stuff down. And if it's really, could be damaging, burn the paper, but get it out. Because the more you get it out, the less power it's going to have over you. Man, this was amazing. Thank you all. So what's this announcement that you keep talking about, Jennifer?
I don't know. What is it? What are we doing in 2022?
So it is the end of the year. This is going to be the last live stream that Jennifer and I do this year. So come in on January 8th of next year. We are going to be launching No BS with Jen and Jess. This came up as a result of all of y'all being super engaged and everything that you've contributed, the confidence that you have been breathing into us. The feedback we've gotten is the depth of conversation that we're having, the vulnerability, like all of that. We simplified it and said no BS, because we're coming to talk. And you said this earlier, Jen, we're not talking about concepts and ideas that we've studied and pontificate about. We're talking about our experience. Right or wrong, it's what the hell we lived through. And that's what y'all are doing with us. So we're going to continue this. The response that we got on the little survey that we put out on the last call gave us so many topics. There's probably about 2 years worth of content there for us to cover. And Jennifer volunteered. She says, okay, here's what we need to do, Jess. That idea that Kirby threw in the bucket there, which was identifying your impact in order to own it and figuring out how to believe it. That is going to be the first topic that we tackle per Jen's direction. and Jennifer wants to be the person on the operating table going extra super vulnerable. And I'm just going to be asking questions. Like, I don't know why she decided that would be the way we're going to go forward, but that's what we're going. What do you have to add, Jennifer?
Okay, so let's take this a little bigger than just what you just said. But again, we started with 5S and personal relationships. We realized the personal relationships piece was way bigger than the 5S, but that doesn't mean we're not going to intertwine and the lean love concept and what that looks like, and some of the lean concepts and some of the things that are out there that can be equated to that lean lifestyle, and not just walking through the gate and applying them. So again, not just what we talked about today, but really also kind of highlighting how we can apply some of those things inside and outside the gate, but also really diving into that vulnerability, trust, creating that space for some of that mental health stuff that we all at some point struggle with, but also know that when there's a space for it, it allows us to really think about it more. So let's go with that.
Let's go with that. I like that. We're just going to talk about people stuff, like the simple, easy thing, right? People in people.
Yes.
Adam says, nice. Never BS with Jen and Jess. He can't wait. And we will close with this. Will Sullivan, man, appreciate you, brother. Appreciate everybody out here in Arkash. Thank you, Angel. Love that you're in here with us. It's 9:15. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, all of the things. Have fun, spend time, practice listening, and we're fixing to jump into the after party on Clubhouse. The link is in at the top of the chat. So come in and we can talk some more. Give us your thoughts on what this conversation was like, and let's get to know each other better.
Sounds good.
Good?
Yes. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Peace.